Hey folks, how you guys doing? Hope you're all having a great day today. This is a sign that I'm about to cut, and I got to this point and realized that it's pretty interesting, so maybe I should record it. I'm going to recreate what I've done here and walk you through the process. I've already saved everything with all of my tool paths, and I've also arrayed my tool path so that whatever I do down here will duplicate above it and specify the distance in between. And this is a two-sided sign, so each one of these will be cut out and then glued back to back, so you see the design on both sides. What I think is interesting about it is this fluting toolpath for texture and making it go around my design and of course be contained inside the perimeter here. So like I said, I've already saved this, so I'm going to go ahead and delete all of my toolpaths. Just my toolpaths, not the selection there. There we go. I deleted all my toolpaths, and now I'm going to recreate this. And let me just go ahead and move this out of the way. So how I started is I used one of these clip art items. This is shield number 2 inside of VCarve. Of course, if you don't want to use this, of course you can use any type of perimeter vector, but just for the sake of keeping it the exact same size, because I know it'll fit on here, I'm just going to grab this one, copy and paste, move it over with shift and the arrow keys, and then press 0 or 9 to rotate it into place. And that's where I'm going to start in a vertical orientation so I can better see what's going on. I also wanted this logo, and I can import the vector from this import vectors button, and it's just easier to go ahead and copy what I've already got. So Control C for copy, Control V for Victor for paste, and I'll use the shift and arrow keys to get it in place, press 0 to rotate it twice, and there we go. This is a trademarked image, so don't use these trademarked images and sell them, because you can get in trouble for creating items off of trademarked images. I'm not selling this. This is for my own personal use, so you're okay in doing so. Now, this is not the original logo. I added this line or this perimeter all the way around it, so I'll click that and delete it. So this was my starting point, basically. I do want a 3/4 inch perimeter all the way around, so I'm going to grab this, go back to drawing, press this offset button, and we're going to go inwards by a distance of 0.75 inches. Let's press offset, and there we go. That's our little border there. Now this, I'm going to select it, select the entire thing as well as the perimeter back and forth, but I want them to remain together. So I'm going to select it and press G for group and U for ungroup. G, U, G, U. I'll do that back and forth a couple times in here. But as it's all grouped together, I can select it first, hold shift to select this second, press F10 to bring up the alignment tools, align to selection, align selected objects to the last item in the selection, and we will go horizontally. So that aligns this logo horizontally inside this perimeter here. I'm not going to align it vertically, because if I do so, this extra space down here where the point is will mess with the spacing and look kind of goofy. So I'll just eyeball this vertically, and that looks good. So that's how I got to that point. I'm going to go ahead and delete all my original stuff so that doesn't get confusing. And we've got a couple options as far as what we can do in this interior area. We can just use an end mill to create a pocket, just a flat plane, kind of boring. I don't want to do that. I want to have some texture there. So what I first did is use this texturing toolpath. Now, once again, I'm going to select this and press U for ungroup. That way I only select this outside here. Hold shift and select that. Now if I use any one of these pocketing or texturing toolpaths with these two selected, it says that basically we want to have the area in between these vectors is what we're working with. So I'm going to go with texturing toolpath, and for a bit I'll just go ahead and select the where is it at? The 1/4 inch white side ball nose bit that I'm going to be using anyway. Press OK. I'm not going to do this texture, but I wanted to show you this. Let's go with a start depth of, let's just say 0.2 inches is where the texture is going to start. That gives us a depth. We don't have to create a end mill pocket first and then cut the texture. With a 0.2 depth, the ball nose bit will plunge that deep and then create the texture. It'll do all the work. So that's not that's unnecessary to change that, or to add a clearance toolpath is what I should say. Sorry, I got a little confused there. Now, as far as all of these settings, you can play with these and tweak them, but all I did was click load. It'll bring up the vcarve folders in the computer, and I selected hand carved texture, which is something that's included with vcarve, and it brought me to these settings. So that's going to give a nice little randomized dish hand carved look, which is pretty cool. Now, we also have to take into consideration a boundary vector offset, and this is a must if we don't want to run into this line, because this texturing toolpath creates the toolpath based upon the exact center of the bit, and we're using a 1/4 inch ball nose bit, so the exact center will go to this perimeter, and because it's a 1/4 inch ball nose bit, it will create a divot inside this area over here that is the radius, which is 1/8 of an inch, and I don't want that, so I need to offset it into the area by 1/8 of an inch. And actually, I'm going to go just a little bit more than 1/8 of an inch, just to make sure that there is no there's no errors as far as the piece shifting just a slight amount, or if there's any small little minor discrepancies in the actual bit size. So I'm going to go, instead of 0.125, I'm going to change that to 0.13. So it's a little bit more than the radius. We're going to offset it towards the inside. And that's basically it. I'm going to name this, I always name my toolpaths the bit and then what it is. So in this case, I'll use BN 250. So it's a ball nose, 1/4 inch. And this is texture. Let's press calculate, and this progress bar down at the bottom, you'll see that there's a lot going on here, and that means it's going to take a little bit of time. So if I go to this summary of toolpaths, you can see that just this texture is 44 minutes, and you know, it's probably going to look good, but I don't want to wait that long. So I'm going to hit, especially not if I'm doubling it up and making 2 of these, that's an hour and a half of cutting just for the texture there. That's a bit much if you ask me. I'll go to preview toolpaths, and let's just press play to see what's going on, and that's what it's going to look like if I leave it as is. That looks pretty cool, and of course I'll have to clean up the perimeter and clean up the perimeter of the design here as well. I think we can get away with just making some vertical lines or some fluting and have an interesting background with a lot less time invested. So I'm going to go back to 2D view. I'm going to leave this texture here so we can go back and compare the times. But instead of the texture, we're going to actually create some lines for fluting. And to do so, I'm going to grab this vector, hold shift, grab that vector, Control C for copy, Control V for paste, M for move, and I'm going to move this in a relative X position of 20. And what I did is I basically just created a copy, moved it out of the way so I don't accidentally mess this one up. This one is dedicated specifically to just creating the fluting lines. So what I want to do is, let's go with this line tool from this top left corner, and we're just going to go down below the lowest point, which is right here. So that's fine. Press escape. It is selected, and we'll go to this array copy. And I think my settings are still here from last time, which they are. We're only doing 1 row. We're not going to copy in the vertical direction. And I have 60 columns. That sounds good. And I'm using an offset of just a tiny bit less than the diameter of the bit. And the reason for that is I want the second cut to slightly overlap the first cut, just to verify that there is no space in between that has never been cut. So that's fine. We're going to use an offset of 0.23 for a 0.250 inch bit. And all of that looks good. I think 60 is going to be more than enough. Press copy. And there we go. 60 is more than enough. So first I'll select the extra over here. I'll press delete. And this first one right here, I'm going to delete it too, because I don't want the center of the bit to interfere with the perimeter shape. I'll delete that. And this one's so close to the perimeter over here, it's going to interfere as well. So I'll go ahead and delete that. And what I'm left with is all of these in the middle. I'm going to grab all of them, press G to make them a group so I can move them together. Hold shift to select this perimeter as my second selection. Press F10 for the alignment, and align to selection horizontal. So now it centers them perfectly. And if I zoom in over here, you can probably tell that this area is greater than this area. And that means that I'm basically not going to, as the bit travels along this path, I'm not going to accidentally mess up the perimeter at all. And it's not going to cut all the way. The bit's going to stop somewhere like right here. So I will have some uncut area to the right of it. But that's okay, because once all of the fluting is done, I'm going to make a perimeter cut on the inside of this line with that same bit to just clean up all of the ends. So I've got to make a couple trimming operations. First thing is, I don't want the bit to start up here at the top, because again, the radius of the bit is going to be inside the perimeter, or outside this perimeter line, which I don't want. So I need to offset this one in, and the exact opposite with this logo. I need to offset a line out. So let's select this and hold Shift to select that. Press close, and if I go to offset, I'm going to offset inwards, and inwards is this area in between. So let's go with an offset of slightly more than half of the diameter, slightly more than the radius, which is 0.125. Might as well just go 0.13 and press offset, and there we go. That gives us some new lines. So now let's grab this group, and let's grab, holding Shift, this outside perimeter of the offset, right? Just the offset. Now we can press close and go to trim. And what we need to do is we're going to trim the objects on the outside of this boundary. So the first thing is what we're trimming. The second thing is the boundary. And we're going to trim the outside of the boundary. Press clear. It'll remove all of this stuff on the bottom and all these little tabs up at the top. There we go. The only thing is now it made all of these that were in a group independent. So let's press G for group again. Actually, let's get out of there. Now we can press G for group, and I accidentally hit F, which changed the view. Let's go back over here. So now that these are all a group, let's select them once again and select the outside offset right here and do the exact same thing. We're going to trim selected objects, and this time we need to trim everything on the inside right here. So let's change this to clear inside boundary, press clear. It made all of these no longer a group anymore. They are independent items. Just so I don't get confused, I'm going to delete that offset, and we'll delete this offset as well. Now these little lines by themselves, that's just going to be in the way, or it's just going to be unnecessary. I'll delete it and delete it. And now we are left with a bunch of full length lines. I no longer need that, and I no longer need that, so I'll delete those. Grab all of these, G for group, M for move, and I've already got something open, so let's press close, then M for move. And we moved this a relative positive value of 20x, so let's move it a relative negative 20x, and that put it exactly where it needs to be. So the bit is going to come down right here and make the cut. That's not going to interfere with this top at all, and it's going to pick up down here and not interfere with this bottom at all. And what it's going to do is leave a bunch of little ridges where the bit enters and exits, where it's not smooth. So before we're done, we're going to clean up all of this with a single pass all the way around. So, excuse me, let's select all of this, and let's go to a fluting toolpath. For this fluting toolpath operation, I'm going to select the bit that I'm going to be using, which is the this bit from Whiteside. It is a 1/4 inch fluting bit, and these are my speeds. It is quite fast, but this is MDF, and it'll just plow right through it, no problem at all. So let's press OK. At this point, I want to, you have some options on this fluting toolpath as far as what type of ramp you want, how long you want the ramp. It's not just a plunge straight across. I guess I could do the exact same thing with the profile rather than fluting, but this just makes more sense to use this. And I'm going to ramp in 1/8 of an inch smooth ramp on both sides. That's fine. Like I said, this can be completed with the profile toolpath with all these lines. But I'm going to name this toolpath BN250. It's a ball nose 1/4 inch bit, and we'll name this Fluting. Press calculate, And there we go. So I'm going to reset my preview and just preview this fluting toolpath. Let's see, preview selected. And it still gives me texture, but just vertical lines. It's not boring, it's still interesting. And the best thing is this should take a heck of a lot less time to cut than the texture. So let's close this and let's look at our two toolpaths here. Look at this. The texture cut is 44 minutes based upon my settings, and the fluting is 7 minutes. And remember, we're going to duplicate these because we're going to array the toolpath for both sides of the sign. So you're looking at an hour and a half versus 14 minutes. I'm going to choose the fluting rather than the texture, so I'll go ahead and delete the texture because fluting just gives me something interesting to look at, and that's really all I want. So there we go with the fluting. Next up, we want to clean up the ends of the fluting on, well, both ends. So what I'm going to do here is select this profile and select this outside profile. And we're going to do a profile toolpath, depth of 0.2 inches. And we are, let's see, the white side, 1/4 inch ball nose, same aggressive 150 inches per minute. It's going to plow right through it. Let's press OK. Same cutting depth, which is 0.2 inches for the fluting. And we're going to go on the inside of these vectors. Now, the way inside and outside is calculated is as you come from the outside of your material, the first vector is what determines outside inside. So this is outside over here, and this is inside. And then if this is the inside area, then this is the inside as well. So it's going to cut where all the fluting is. Climb versus conventional is not really going to make much of a difference at all for MDF. And let's see, everything else is good. I'm just going to add a ramp here, quick little 45-degree angle, just so it doesn't wander as it plunges down. And we'll name this toolpath BN250. Profile cleanup. Calculate. There we go. I didn't click it. All right, so now with just the fluting toolpath done, we have all these little ridges all the way around. But if I was to use this cleanup path right after that, let's preview selected toolpath. It cleans everything up nice and neat and establishes the logo on the inside. And it's exactly what I want. Let's go back to the 2D view, and now with the fluting done, the cleanup done, let's focus on a different bit, and that is a V-groove bit for all of this. Now, for all of the logo. Now, if I was to just select the logo and go with a V-carve bit, it's going to cut in the opposite space that I want it to cut. So if I'm looking at this logo, I want this perimeter right there. All of this space that's highlighted, this area, I want that to be a positive space. That's going to be space that has 0 cuts on it. And then it's going to be cut down in this space right here. Well, if I was to simply select the entire logo and click V-carve, what it's going to do is it's going to come to the first vector and then cut the first area as a V-bit. And I don't want that. It's going to cut this in a negative space. So before I can do the V-carve, what I need to do is actually create an auxiliary line on the outside, a little offset line, to basically trick V-carve toolpath into cutting the opposite of what it would originally. So I'm going to grab that, I'm going to click offset and make this an extremely small outward offset just to create a little ghost line that the machine's going to go along so that it cuts in the right area. So let's go with I don't know, 0.05. That sounds tiny. Let's press offset. Now that we have this extra line, if I select everything right here, it's going to go to the first line and cut this first area, kind of like a ghosting cut. This is already going to be removed from the ball nose. It's not really going to matter at all. Leave this area proud and then cut this area deep, which is exactly what I want. So now that this is selected, we'll go to V-carve. I'm going to set a flat depth of 0.2 inches, which is the exact same as I used for this fluting. I'm going to use the Whiteside 1550 V-groove bit. That's my go-to 60 degree V-bit. And it has a 1/2 inch cutting diameter, so it'll get into some of these larger areas. And for the flat clearance area, we're going to use the, I think I've changed my settings since then, the end mill 1/4 inch. We're going to cut with the down cut. And again, let's press OK so I don't modify my tool library, but I am going to press edit and change my feed rate to 150. This is MDF. Like I said, it's just going to plow right through it with no problems at all. So we're going to go 150 inches per minute. Press OK. That is going to be the flat area clearance tool. And for this tool path, I'm going to name it V60 because it's a V bit, 60 degree bit, and V60 logo. Press calculate. Now it's going to create two tool paths because of this flat area clearance tool. So let's press calculate. And let's see, where did it go? It went up on top for some reason. I'm going to put these down because that's just the order in which I'm going to cut them. And you can see here the little icon here. So this one says, this one has an end mill icon, end mill icon. This one looks like a V bit, and this one looks like an end mill. So you can see at a glance of what bits are going to be used. So we'll go ahead and preview selected toolpaths. Whoops, I need the logo as well. Preview selected toolpaths. So that's going to look pretty cool, right? I'm gonna try and do this whole thing with the same colors that are being displayed on the screen. I'm going to put a white base coat down on everything and then paint the inside red. And by that time, hopefully the white is cured up enough to where if I get any red on top of the white, I can just simply wipe it off. It should be, that's the plan anyway. It should be pretty easy. So let's go back to our 2D view. And now that we have the logo taken care of, we have the fluting taken care of, we just need to simply cut out the sign. So for this last one, I'm going to go with a profile toolpath. We're just going to select this perimeter. We are using the, we are not using the ball nose. Let's select the down cut. This is an end mill 1/4 inch white side RD2100 down cut bit. Press OK, and I don't want to edit my library, but I do want to edit this cut or this toolpath, and I'm going to change this to 150 once again because, like I said, it'll plow right through it. We are going to make this on the outside. I've made this mistake of not checking this properly. We're going to cut on the outside, and I want to add tabs to the toolpath. Those tabs look okay. I'll leave them. Maybe a little bit excessive, but it doesn't matter because I'll pop them with the, or chop them real quick with the chisel and flush trim them. No big deal at all. Let's see, I'll go ahead and do 3D tabs just to not slow it down as much, which won't make much of a difference at all. And add ramp to the toolpath. I always do this just because as you plunge down, sometimes the bit can wander. I'll put a 45-degree ramp, and then we'll name this one EM250. That's the bit we're using. And yeah, I guess I spelled that right. Perimeter. Press calculate and preview selected toolpath. And there we go. It's not the correct depth. I just realized that. So let's double click to edit it again. Change the depth to the full thickness of the material, which is 0.75 inches. Press calculate, and then I will preview selected toolpath. So it's going to cut it out, leave me some tabs. So that's how I got to finalizing this sign, I guess you could say. But I want to fit two of them on my material here, so I'm going to select all of this, press 9 or 0, it doesn't matter, to rotate it in place. And I've got these little guidelines set at 1 inch away, which will give me enough for clamps as well as the bit. So I'm just going to use the arrows to move this down where I need it. Sure, that sounds right. And then I will right click and recalculate all toolpaths, because if you don't, that's where the toolpaths were created. That's where they're going to be. So we need to right click and say recalculate all. There you go. And now, instead of copying everything twice, all we have to do is do, let's see, where did it go? Array copy toolpath. Let's select that. And all of these toolpaths are selected, as you can see up here. We're going to have 2 rows. So this is the 1 row, this is the 2nd row in the 1 column, and we'll have a positive gap of, let's see, 4x doesn't matter, but a positive gap of 1 inch gap in between in the Y direction. And we'll just press calculate. And we will reset the preview, go back to 2D view. And what that did is it took all of my work right here and duplicated it up here. I have enough space down here on the bottom And on the top for clamps, this should be just enough. That should be fine. So if I go to my 3D view, click reset, preview all toolpaths, I'll have two pieces of sign material that I can cut out and glue them back to back to make a two-sided sign. Anyway, I thought that was interesting, especially using the fluting toolpath to give some texture that's much quicker than using the texture toolpath. And it just adds a little bit of visual interest instead of making it boring and plain with the flat pocket end mill. So let's press close and see what our final damage is on time. So instead of that one texture being 44 minutes and then an hour and a half, basically when you duplicate it, now I can cut both of these signs in 28 minutes with 3 different bits. That's pretty cool. So now I can save all these and we'll go out to the shop and we'll get this cut. All right, back in the shop. First up is the 1/4 inch ball nose bit, and as you can see, it's just a bunch of back and forth, very quick and easy cuts. They're very simple cuts, and this is, like I said, a simple way to add texture to a pocket. You can also see that the ridges are being formed at the ends of the cuts and how quickly those are removed, and a nice perimeter is established with the same bit and the same cutting depth. Just a quick little cleanup cut. And while it was cutting the ball nose toolpath on the second sign, I brushed the first one with a nylon brush. Now these brushes, they're incredibly cheap at Harbor Freight, $1 or $2, something like that. And they do a great job at removing any loose fuzz that's left over on the MDF. Once again, you can see how the ends of the fluting toolpath are cleaned up, resulting in a nice finished appearance. It looks really nice. The second bit to be used is this 60-degree V-bit for the logo. And the V-carve toolpaths, they're just really interesting to me because you always get such precise shapes out of them. The software calculates when to lift the bit to create a nice, sharp, crisp corner, so you're not limited to the radius of the bit for interior corners. Everything's just always crisp and sharp, especially in MDF. MDF cuts really good. Now, remember that I created a pocket clearance toolpath with the end mill, but I started these V-carve toolpaths with the V-bit first before the end mill toolpath, just because I get better results when doing so. Finally, the 1/4 inch end mill is used to finish the logo and establish the sign perimeter. And you'll notice a few oil spots on the signs, and that's because I added too much oil to the ball screws before running this project, and it eventually dripped onto the material. Just routine maintenance. You're supposed to keep the ball screws lubricated. And I'm hoping this won't be an issue at all. I'm going to scrub it and seal it with shellac, so I don't think it'll be an issue. Hopefully it won't. After all of the CNC cuts, the tabs are broken with a chisel and then flush trimmed with a router bit. And this is a compression flush trim router bit, so the bottom surface is being cut in the up direction, leaving a super clean edge. And I've gotten to where I use this bit so much that I kind of want to get a separate router table or something set up separately so I can leave this one 100% dedicated to this bit. I use this bit all the time. Then the sign pieces are glued and clamped together, and the next day I ran the sign over the flush trim bit once again, but I had the bit height set so that the top bearing is guiding along the top piece of the MDF and made a pass all the way around the sign. Now this will even up half of any misalignment in the two pieces. And to get the other half, flip the sign over and make another pass all the way around, and that takes care of the other half of all of the misalignment. There wasn't much at all, but it just cleans it up nice and quick and easy, and the result is a smooth face all the way around the piece. And now the sign can be sealed with a few flood coats of shellac based upon my research. So I've never used MDF outside in a sign like this, but I've researched and found several established sign makers who have had good long-term results using MDF sealed with shellac and then finished with an outdoor rated finish. Like I said, I've never done it before, but I'm going to take their experience and run with it. So that's the plan with this one, and that's where I'm going to end this video. I mainly wanted to focus on the toolpath setup and getting the sign cut and glued together. I'll cover the finish and the mounting details in the next video, where I actually make the entire signpost and install it. So thanks for watching. You guys take care, and I'll talk to you in the next video.